Okay, hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. So for today's session, we are going to be talking about our pre-market live analysis. I'm Melanie and I'll be covering for Woon for today. I have a little bit of an eye infection today, so I won't be turning on my camera. But if there are any questions, feel free to let me know in the chat. We will begin in about 1 more minute, just to let more people join our session before we get started. Yeah, so Woon isn't feeling well today, so that's why I'm covering for him. He will be back uh on the 23rd, I think, for that webinar. So you can stay tuned for that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So as per usual, a disclaimer. And risk warning: trading forex and CFDs carries a high level of risk to your capital, and you should only trade with money you can afford to lose. Trading forex and CFDs may not be suitable for all investors, so please ensure that you fully understand the risks involved and seek independent advice if necessary. So here's our agenda for today. We'll start off looking at some FX majors, but obviously if you guys have any requests, we'll do that as well. Okay, so I'm Melanie and I'll be your speaker for today. I'm an investment analyst at Rocket, who are finalists for Best FX and Equity Research in the years 2019 to 2021. We specialize in technical analysis with a focus on Fibonacci retracements, extensions, and projections. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, just give me a second to open my charts. Okay, so before we get started looking at our charts, let's look at the economic events for the coming week. So this is just forexfactory.com, which is the economic calendar that we normally like to use. There are a lot on the market that you can use for free. So yeah, entirely up to you which you choose to use. So you can click on today's date. I'll look at this week's events. Okay, and you can see I have it filtered to focus solely or mainly on the orange and red icons. So these are the medium to high impact events. So if you click on this green filter, you can focus or you can look at the low impact events as well, which are the yellow icon, and any bank holidays, which are the non-economic events, or the gray box. You can also filter any event types or currencies you're not currently looking at. Okay, and you can see that there are a lot more events to cover for the week. So that's why we like to just streamline it and just focus on the medium and high impact events. Okay, so starting with today, we have core CPI flash estimate for the Eurozone, which is forecasted to come out lower than previous. We have US final manufacturing PMI and ISM manufacturing. We also on Tuesday, tomorrow, we have Australia's monetary policy meeting minutes. Retail sales, which is expected to go up slightly to 0.3%. In Japan, Bank of Japan governor will be speaking as well. On Wednesday, Australia's GDP data will be released, expected to be higher than previous. Swiss CPI, so this is inflationary data, will be released as well, and it's expected to come to 0.5, much higher than the previous minus 0.1. US ADP, non-farm employment change, UK's monetary policy report hearings, and US zone PMI and crude oil inventories. On Thursday, we have RBNZ's governor speaking, UK's construction PMI, Eurozone, we have the Euro Summit, main refinancing rate, monetary policy statement, and US unemployment claims. Eurozone, we have ECB press conference as well, and Canada's IV PMI. Oh yes, for US unemployment claims, it's expected to be lower than previous. And lastly, on Friday, we have US FOMC member Wallace speaking, and Canada's unemployment rate, which is expected to be slightly higher than previous, and US zone average hourly earnings, non-farm employment change, and unemployment rate. Okay, let's pull our charts and we can get started. Okay, so let's get started by looking at our DXY for now. Okay, so I'd like to start off by looking at the higher time frames so that we get an idea of the direction that prices are headed towards. So here we have prices moving generally in an uptrend. Recently, there's been a recent downtrend. Now let's look at our daily time frame. Okay, on our daily time frame, we see that same uptrend happening once again. So generally, we like to follow the overall trend when it comes to um, looking at the overall direction that prices are headed towards. So here I see prices moving upwards. So I'm gonna place my first support maybe over here on my pivot. Okay, and then for my first resistance, I'll place it up here. Okay, and my first support. Okay, now I'm going in with my Fibonacci levels to support these horizontal levels. Okay, so you can see that my 38.2 lines up. I'm actually going to add an intermediate resistance level over here. Okay, because in this area you can see I have a swing high and a whole bunch of swing lows in this area, kind of testing that intermediate level. Okay, next. Okay, I think I'll keep that 61.8 instead. Okay, next, let's go in with our projection levels. Okay, my 100% lines up nicely with the pivot. My 161.8 also lines up with our first support. Okay, now I'm going in with a smaller retracement in this area here. You can see my 61 and 38 line up again with that first resistance and the intermediate resistance. Okay, here we have a bit of a Nike tick or Fibonacci extension. Okay, you can see the 127 lines up perfectly with our pivot. And so I'll keep the 127 and 168 in line with our first support. Okay, if you're unfamiliar with what this is, it's basically, let me draw it out for you. So this is the shape that I'm looking at. We call it a Nike tick because if it's upright, it'll look like that. Here, in this case, it's inverted. And in this case, we look at the levels that are greater than 100% on the retracement, using the retracement tool, this fib retracement tool, but we just focus on the levels that are greater than 100. So namely the 127 and 161 normally. Okay. Okay, so we can see we have this huge confluence area here. Okay, so I'm expecting there to be enough upward momentum to push prices upwards towards that first resistance. But yeah, just be careful of this intermediate level here. That's why I've highlighted it. Let's take a look at some indicators to see if they support our analysis. Okay, currently price is moving below the Ichimoku cloud, which is a bearish signal. So that doesn't support our analysis. I'm going to remove it for now. MACD, you can see, is giving us a overall bearish signal, which makes sense because price was recently dropping. But there's been a slight uptick, and you can see that reflected in our MACD as well, giving us a slight bullish signal here. I'm gonna KIV this until it gives us a excuse me, a stronger signal, bullish signal. For now, I'm going to use our moving averages, EMA and SMA, and you can see price moving above both of these indicators. So that gives us a bullish signal. Okay, I also like to use parabolic SAR with these two, and you can see prices moving below the indicator, so that doesn't support. Next, let's look at RSI and stochastic. Okay. Um, okay, with our RSI, you can see prices generally moving upwards recently. Okay. Here you can see prices bouncing off of that first support, um, or rather hidden support level on our RSI. Okay, which lines up nicely with that bounce off of our pivot. Okay, on our stochastic, we see that happening as well. Okay, so this method is called a hidden resistance. Yeah, basically what that means is previously previously, when price hit this level here, we saw price bounce off as well and move upwards. Okay, so on our RSI and stochastic, when price bounced off this, not price, but when our indicator shows it bouncing off this support level, hidden support, prices actually went upwards. So similarly, we're expecting that to happen here as well towards our first resistance. Okay. Any questions? Okay, next let's take a look at gold. Oops. Okay, so now let's take a look at gold, and we're looking at this on our weekly time frame. Now on gold, we see this slight reversal up here recently. Okay, this will be our first resistance. This will be my first support. And and I guess as a pivot, I'll just place it at where price is currently at. Okay, so that 38 and 50 both line up. Well, actually, are okay, I think this lines up better. Okay, I'm using a projection as well. So here the 78 lines up with our first resistance. Okay, my 161 also lines up with my first resistance. So for this, you can see again, I'm using that Nike tick shape here. Okay, I think that's all levels we have. Um, yeah. So now let's go in with our indicators. I'm expecting prices to continue to drop, at least to that first support level. Okay, so on our MACD, it supports our analysis. On Ichimoku, prices are moving above the cloud, so that doesn't support our analysis. Let's look at EMA, SMAs, and parabolic saws. Okay, here we have prices moving below the EMA and SMA. Um, as of right now, we aren't really seeing prices. Oh, actually, okay, it is gradually moving below that SAR level. If you look really closely, you can kind of see the dots above price. Okay, so that does support our analysis. Let's now look at maybe Bollinger Bands. Okay, so on our Bollinger Bands, you can see prices moving into that lower limit, which is a bearish signal as well. Okay, let's look at RSI and stochastic. So previously we had that hidden support level. Here we are seeing a hidden resistance level here. Okay, so that supports our analysis because um it's telling us that prices might continue to drop, like we are already seeing here. Now on our RSI, we also see that resistance here as well. Okay. Okay, any questions for gold? Okay. Okay, now if there are no questions, let's look at euro dollar. So same thing, I'm starting off by looking at the higher time frames first, so we get an idea on the direction that prices are moving towards. Now on our daily time frame, you can see prices generally dropping. Okay, I'll place my first resistance at this double swing high. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So next I'll place my pivot um over here. Okay, so it's at overlap level, and what that means is that it's basically in line with a couple of swing lows and swing highs. Okay, next I'll place my first support maybe way below here. Okay, now I'm going in with my Fibonacci levels. Okay, no, so even though this 38 lines up with the pivot, um, I'm not going to use it because price just recently crossed that line, so it's no longer valid. Okay, here my 78.6 lines up nicely with our first resistance. Um, okay, my 50% also lines up with the first resistance. Okay, 78 lines up nicely. So in this case, what I've been using is the trend-based fib extension tool. And for this one, we aren't looking for a Nike tick like previously. Um, we're looking for more of this lightning bolt shape or like a flash kind of symbol. Yeah, I am, however, using the Nike tick here as well. So this is a big Nike tick shape here, inverted. And my 161 lines up nicely with my first support. Oh, so I'm gonna go ahead and use that 161. Okay, so I have a confluence area here, and I'm expecting prices to continue dropping toward that first support area. Maybe let's check to see if we have any levels here as well. Okay, no. Okay, so next let's look at some indicators again. Okay, you can kind of see Ichimoku. So price has been moving within the cloud, which is a transition signal, but currently prices are peaking below that cloud. So it does give us a bearish signal. MACD is giving us a very slight bearish signal as well, but I don't want to use this now because I want to wait for it to give me a bit of a stronger bearish signal. Okay, let's look at EMA, SMA, and SA again. Mm, okay, you see prices moving below the EMA and SMA indicators, but not below the parabolic saw. Okay, so I'm gonna remove that. Let's look at RSI and stochastic and maybe Bollinger Bands as well. Um, Bollinger Bands aren't really telling us much right now. Okay, it is moving into that lower half, or lower limit of the Bollinger Band, but it's not giving us a very strong bearish signal, so I'm not going to use this. Okay. RSI and stochastic, you can see prices moving downwards as well. All the signal just giving us pretty bearish indicators here as well. Okay, and you can see that both of these line up with that previous swing high where we saw prices drop as well. Okay, so expecting that to happen again. Okay, if there are no questions on euro dollar, let's move on. Okay, so on our weekly time frame, you can see prices generally moving downwards, but daily time frame is giving us a bit of this uptick recently, or a bit of a bounce. Okay, so this will be my first support. So a good habit is to try and pull it back as far as you can without cutting too many bodies of candlesticks, just so you can see how many times price has reacted off this level in the past, because it's likely to happen again. So I'm going to place my pivot over here. So you can see it's in line with a bunch of swing lows. Next, I'm going to place a first resistance up here. Okay. So that 61.8 lines up with the first resistance. Oh, actually, first resistance and 23.6. Okay, which lines up with our pivot. Maybe let's check the projection as well. Okay, no, none of these levels work. I'm using another retracement here. Okay, you can see the 50% lines up nicely with our first support. Mm, okay, no. Okay, now if we zoom in closer, there is a smaller Nike tick shape here. So I want to see if we have any Fibonacci levels to kind of support that. Okay, my 161 lines up with our first support. So you can see our first support is quite a big confluence area. Okay, we have a bunch of swing highs and swing lows that line up there, and also a bunch of Fibonacci levels as well. So I'm expecting prices to bounce off a little bit towards our first resistance. Okay, yeah, but just be careful of this pivot level because prices haven't really broken out of that level yet. So if I'm being or I want to wait for that upside confirmation, I'll wait for price to break above the pivot first. Okay, next let's look at our indicators, and you can see they are giving us pretty bearish signals, so they don't support our analysis. Next, let's look at BB, and our SMEs. Okay, so on the Bollinger Band, you can see prices recently bouncing off that lower limit. Yeah, so it does support that slight reversal, but it might not be enough to push price towards the first resistance. So again, I will wait for price to break above the pivot before going in for a buy. Okay. On our on our RSI and stochastic, you can see that prices kind of moving in that hidden support again. Okay, so if you look at the recent price reversal over here, where I've placed that vertical line, you can see price reversed of the first support, but on our stochastic, it's also giving us that same signal. Okay, and so we're expecting it to happen again here, which it is already slightly happening. Okay, now let's look at our EMA and SMAs. So price just recently crossed over the EMA and SMA, so that is supporting our analysis. It is giving us a bullish signal. Okay, are there any questions on dollar yen? If not, let's move on. Um, let's maybe look at Bitcoin now. Okay, now on our weekly time frame, there's been a slight drop. Recently, um, now I'm gonna place a first resistance, oh sorry, a first support at this swing low. Okay, like I mentioned, you want to pull it back as far as you can. Okay, a pivot, I'll just place at this overlap level. Um, that's also in line with other swing lows as well. Okay, and a first resistance, I'll just place it up here. Okay, now same thing going in with my Fibonacci levels. Okay, my 50% lines up with that first support. I think the 1 to 7 lines up. Yeah, with my first support as well. I'm going in with another retracement on this smaller movement. So the 61 and the 23 both line up with my first resistance and pivot. Again, I see a bit of this inverted Nike tick shape here. So I'm gonna go in with my Nike extension. Okay, now 161 also lines up nicely with my first support. Mm, I think that's all the levels we have. Yeah, I would go long as well. So I'm expecting prices to push above that pivot, and maybe head towards that first resistance. But let's look at some indicators first to see if they support our analysis because the recent drop, yeah. So the reason because of this drop recently last week, that's the reason for this. This is obviously a downtrend, right? Even though there is a slight reversal recently. So overall, our indicators will be pretty bearish. Like Ichimoku, we saw price moving below the cloud. Here you see MACD is being pretty bearish as well. Let's look at EMA, SMA, Bollinger Bands as well. And Bollinger Bands, you can see prices reversing off that lower limit or that lower band. So it does support our analysis. Yeah. Now, EMA, SMA, you can see prices very recently pushing above or crossing over both of these indicators. So that does support our bullish analysis. Let's look at SAR. Again, giving us a pretty bearish signal with prices moving below it. So I'm removing that. Okay. And lastly, let's maybe look, oops, let's look at the RSI and stochastic levels. Okay, so on I just want to zoom in to these 2 points here. So, on the RSI, it's giving us that same hidden resistance level, but no buts. They are both giving us a hidden support level. Okay, in this case, because price is making a lower low, and RSI and stochastic are both giving us um both reacting off that hidden support. So it's suggests that prices might see a might bounce off that level, which is what we are seeing currently. So yeah, this is what I mean by prices are making a lower low. Let's see if we can find another one over here as well. Okay, so in this case, using that same level, prices actually, so here we are looking at past prices. So this doesn't support, this doesn't really affect our analysis. I just want to show you guys what I mean by a hidden support. So here we see prices moving upwards, um, making a higher low. Stochastic, however, is giving us this hidden support. Okay, so it suggests that prices might be continuing upwards. So it's pretty much that same idea here as well. Okay, but this doesn't really support our analysis because it's in the past. I just wanted to show you guys an example of a hidden support, and how it works basically. Okay, are there any other requests? Let me just check the chat. Okay, I don't think there are any more requests in the chat. Are there any questions from you guys? No? Okay, great. So if you guys don't have any more requests or any questions, yeah, that's it for today's session. Thank you guys. Let me just turn on my camera to say bye to you guys. Yeah, apologies because I have pretty puffy eyes because of an eye infection. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you guys found the session helpful. Yeah, have a great rest of your week, and I will see you guys again soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.